From the start of our network of interfaith organizations, NAIN has offered a witness to the realities of spirit together. We found we could represent to our communities a vivid portrait, a mosaic of spirit-filled cooperation to build a compassionate and cooperative civil society. And today, facing scarcity, environmental tribulations, and economic troubles, we know we exist because we are resourceful. We are made stronger by our cooperation. That is the power of spirit that heals wounds, feeds those in need, gives hope to the downtrodden, opens doors, finds new paths, builds new options, and moves among us all. Here, Chuck and Bettina talk of NAIN's early history.
Gee, I haven't thought about this for years.
The CC meeting, the survey, the meeting in Amadon, those were three main threads.
I've always said that those three threads came together, and coming together then were the spark that gave impetus to form the network.
We had actually asked, should there be a network in the survey as well, and there was a positive response on that. And also, there were some formative organizing meetings at the Temple of Understanding leading to a constitution and a formal structure by the time we got to Wichita, so that carried on into Seattle, and it was a 4 or 5 year process, if I remember right. In the late 1970s, I was chair of the Berkeley Area Interfaith Council, which was, for all we knew, an experiment in interfaith relations. We'd had very little experience. We were just trying to learn how to talk to each other and maybe work together. And as chair, I went looking to see if there were any other people involved, and ended up meeting Sam Muskins and Chuck White and Peter Lawrence and a number of folks. The question then became, would it serve our groups to be linked somehow? And that's how NAIN was born.
My first interfaith position was at Wainwright House in Rye, New York. I was director of the Interfaith Center there, starting in the mid-1980s. And in that context, I met Dan Anderson in February of 1986. And the first NAIN founding meeting that he chaired was at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York.
There, we really came up with the name North American Interfaith Network because when we decided to come to Wichita, Kansas, we were already calling it the North American Interfaith Network. And we had the North American CC conference in Wichita, but we were referring to ourselves as the North American Interfaith Network.
I believe there's much that's being done. Again, if you think about the experiences that we had in Buffalo, whenever there are relationships that are developing, particularly with, if I can use this term, relationships that are developing with the other. Whenever there are relationships developing with the other, something very significant is happening there. So I brought in a ball of twine. I began to toss it from corner to corner and ask people to toss it back. And we were able to form a kind of like a spider web. I said, now hang on to it tight. Let's pull it taut. And once we had that, I snapped it. I asked, forget who she was over in the far corner. I said, did you feel that? She said, yeah. I said, well, for me, that's the essence of what we're building.
Well, I guess a lot of what I got is friendship, because you get to know people from a lot of different communities, and you feel that, well, they're doing important things in their community, and I think we're doing important things here, and we've got something in common, and you feel good about being with those people. they're good citizens, and they're thinking people, and they're hardworking people.
What inspires me is the people, but not just the people. It's the way they work with each other, the way boundaries are transcended. And that's what I believe, is that boundaries are possible to be transcended.
Of course, it's about the people, the friendships you make, the connections that are lifelong across North America. But it's more than that. NAIN, because of its makeup, offers a special kind of lens through which each of us can examine not only other religions and spiritualities, but our own from a point of view that we might never have thought of without that ability to see ourselves from a different perspective.
I certainly get a chance to make new friendships. I probably know more people from Edmonton, Alberta than anyone else in Washington, D.C., which has been, kind of an interesting thing to tell people over the years. And it certainly gives me, it puts some flesh on some of those, case studies that I read about in academic textbooks.
Well, not just board members, although certainly those are people I have associated with the most, but also the attendees that come back year after year. We've established a connection that, as I mentioned to Rachel, we can't really express in a blog or on a website. You have to experience it to realize how deep those connections are.
I started doing interfaith work because I became convinced that it had the capacity for breaking down the divisions between religious communities. And it just seemed to me that could only lead to a much healthier planet, a much more harmonious global civilization. And so I was convinced that this was worthwhile effort and was happy to become part of it. Based on my own experience, there's been a tremendous growth in interfaith work. I've been doing it since mid-1980s, and it has grown exponentially.
We have accomplished a great deal in NAIN's 25 years as a volunteer organization. We have a lot to celebrate this summer in Toronto as we reflect on these first 25 years and imagine what the next 25 years are going to look like.
That we really have grown, and we've developed as an organization. One of the things that happened during my term as chair was that we went from a hard copy newsletter to an electronic newsletter, and that was a big move for us, and yet it was really exactly the right move to take at that time. And I think we've become much more engaged in media and social media and electronic media of all kinds, and that's a plus.
The incredible acceleration in the rate of change that has happened in the past few years. In the history of NAIN, we've gone all the way from paper to online and through online and now into social media, reaching now people on our NAIN Facebook page to an incredible extent. Like well over 900 people have liked us, and we have a weekly reach that's well over 200 on the average.
I think the greatest accomplishment was that we began to involve younger people in NAIN. I remember at the Dallas Connect, it was Will Baker who got up and made an impassioned plea to the membership in general to include more young people and to gear our programming to be inclusive of them. And so I became chair at that point, and I asked Will if he would chair a young adult committee, a new subcommittee for the NAIN board, and he agreed, and we established a scholarship program.
I'm certainly very proud of the fact that I was the youngest chair of NAIN. I think that still remains true today. So I was 36 when I was elected chair.
And it's, hard to know what's going on around the country, and I think that, NAIN provides a really great forum for people across the country and across North America to connect with, interfaith colleagues who are doing similar work and exciting work in other parts of the continent that you might not otherwise be exposed to. Yeah, I've met a lot of great people at NAIN, and both in serving on the Young Adults Committee and also in serving on the board for the past 2 years. And it's been a great opportunity both to meet, people who have been doing this work for 20 plus years, and also to meet, people who are just starting to get involved in the interfaith movement and seeing, what they're doing and the kinds of opportunities that they're taking by serving on the Young Adults Committee and getting to meet a new cohort of young adult scholars every year has been really exciting to sort of see the wide array of people of the wide array of what people are doing in the interfaith movement, both sort of at the end of their careers, having been involved in the interfaith movement for a long time, and also people who are just beginning to get started in the movement.
NAIN is healthy. I love to see the next generation coming along. I love that NAIN is interactive between generations.
I think the need for interfaith work just gets more and more important and more critical to peace in the world. And I'm so inspired by the work that's going on all over the world, because I have been involved in international interfaith organizations like the United Religions Initiative as well. And the work that's going on in the countries where there really are wars that involve people from different faith traditions is just astonishing. In Pakistan and in Afghanistan and in the Middle East and all the countries in the Middle East, there's just very active interfaith work going on that hardly anyone ever hears from. And when I read those stories, it just inspires me and it gives me so much hope.
What I really want to see is more of NAIN, because I think there's still so many hate crimes. There is still so much ignorance all around. And people practically have to experience what it is to be in community with people who are different and then learn. And you can't talk about it and you can't lecture. You just have to experience it. And NAIN provides a setting for that experience. I would just like to see NAIN grow.
I'd like to see NAIN become more of a household word, so that when people hear the word NAIN, they just don't think of NAIN, Alaska. But they think North America has a network of interfaith organizations and persons and networks that are committed to interfaith harmony and working jointly and collectively for peace, justice, the sustainability of creation. Those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about these days.
The NAIN tends to gather and energize those who've been called forth to transcend the boundaries, which in my keynote in Seattle is entitled Keepers of the Light. Those people who've tried to wall up the light. NAIN affirms that the light can never be walled up. Young people not only carry the torch, but they carry the spark. But they often worry about the state of our world. When asked by a delegation from the Middle East, will the world ever end, which I had the honor of translating for Baba Vyosa Singhi, he replied, God promised Noah that never again would he wipe out all of humanity, and continued that there is a wave of good souls being born in the world who are quick to recognize that light. So let us see the darkness as just a background for that light to play upon. And the darker it becomes, the more brilliant the light will appear and draw everyone towards it. So I've always seen NAIN as a place where we connect those dots and amplify that light. And to the extent that NAIN and the interfaith movement continues to foster and nurture that goodness and call on our fellow practitioners within our traditions and communities to step out into the light from behind their walls, we are successful. And after all, the time of peace has been promised by all of our great masters. It's what they gave their lives and their families for. I was at an interfaith Thanksgiving service about 20 years ago, and in closing, everyone came together in song. And the voice within me spoke and said God was so happy that everyone was raising their voices in praise of that one. The voice said, tell all those who have cursed their fate that they were born at this time will live to thank God that they were born at this time. And every time we convene in NAIN and beyond, I can see that coming to fruition.